Welcome to the Healing Waves Reiki podcast. I'm your host, Kathy Scarpito, Reiki Master Teacher, spiritual mentor, intuitive, and physical therapist. This is a grounded, heart-centered space where we explore Reiki, energy, and the science and spirit of healing. How Reiki supports the body, deepens intuition, regulates the nervous system, and helps transform the experience of healing. Where Reiki meets science, intuition meets practice, and healing becomes more human. If you're curious about Reiki, drawn to deeper healing, or seeking a more connective and intuitive way to care for yourself or others, you're in the right place. Let's begin. Welcome back to the Healing Waves Reiki podcast. This episode is a short pause in the series, a moment to bring clarity to the language that we're using here. Someone asked me yesterday, what does healing becomes more human mean? If one person doesn't understand that language, then most likely there are others that do not as well. So this episode is simply about defining a few core terms you'll hear throughout the podcast, not as rigid concepts, but as lived, clinical, and human-centered ideas. When I say healing becomes more human, I'm referring to the idea that care is not only technical, it is relational and experiential. It means we are not only treating a body or a diagnosis. We are working with a whole person, a person with experiences, emotions, history, and a nervous system that is constantly responding to their environment. To make healing more human is to bring awareness back to presence, connection, and compassion, without losing clinical grounding. It is not less scientific. It is more complete. When I use the word relational, I am referring to the impact of connection between people in the healing process. Relational means that healing does not happen in isolation. It happens within the space between practitioner and patient. It includes presence, tone, attention, trust, and the felt sense of safety in interaction. In a relational approach, the relationship itself becomes part of the therapeutic environment. This means the practitioner is not separate from the process. How we show up, calm, present, attentive, or distracted, influence the system in front of us. Relational care acknowledges that human connection is not secondary to treatment. It is part of the treatment. Regulation is a word that is often used in healthcare, but not always clearly defined. In this podcast, when I say regulation, I am not referring to being calm all the time. Regulation is flexibility. It is the ability of the nervous system to respond to stress and then return to balance. It is the capacity to move between activation and rest without getting stuck in either. Regulation is not perfection. It is adaptability, and it is foundational to healing. Another one of the phrases you'll hear often is safe enough to soften. This is not an emotional instruction. It is a physiological observation. The body does not soften on command. It softens when it no longer perceives threat. When the nervous system senses safety, even in small degrees, the body may begin to release tension. Breath deepens. Muscles unwind. The system becomes less guarded. To soften is not to lose control. It is to no longer need as much protection. And in that state, healing processes often become more accessible. Holding space means being fully present with someone without trying to control, fix, rush, judge, or change their experience. It is creating an environment where another person feels safe, supported, seen, emotionally allowed, and they're not alone in what they are experiencing. In healing work, holding space often means listening without immediately giving advice, staying grounded while someone processes emotions, allowing silence, being steady and present rather than trying to solve everything, offering calm, nervous system presence. It's less about doing and more about how you are with someone. In a healthcare or Reiki context, holding space can look like making a patient feel genuinely heard, staying calm while someone is emotional, not rushing vulnerability, creating enough safety for the nervous system to soften, being present without needing to immediately fix discomfort. It does not mean taking on someone else's emotions, rescuing, over-identifying, absorbing their energy, abandoning professional boundaries. In the Healing Waves Reiki podcast, these ideas are not separate concepts. They are interconnected. Regulation supports softening. Safety allows regulation. Relational presence supports safety. And healing becomes more human when all of that is acknowledged. This is where science and spirit are not in opposition. Science helps us understand the nervous system. Presence helps us understand the human experience inside that system. Both matter. Both are needed. So this episode is simply here to create a shared language, not to overdefine, not to overcomplicate, but to give you clarity as we move forward together through this work. Because when we understand the same words, we can begin to understand healing in a deeper way. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next episode of the Healing Waves Reiki podcast. This podcast is intended for informational, educational, and inspirational purposes only. The content shared on this podcast is not medical, psychological, legal, or professional advice and is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any condition. Always seek the guidance of a qualified healthcare provider, mental health professional, or other licensed professional regarding your specific needs. The views expressed by guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of the host. Listener discretion and personal responsibility are advised.